Howdy, football fans. Big D back with another stream on the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. Before I bring in Hutch, please subscribe, like, and share the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. See all my content, see all my videos, streams, YouTube shorts. Also, check out the Big D podcast for the audio listeners on Spotify and Apple. This will probably be the last video that I will put up for a little while. I will be in Illinois for the next week and a half or so maybe on hiatus or so. So usually the I'm the youngest one hosting a podcast or stream, but then we've got someone way younger than me. So joining us from Pennsylvania, 16 years. I don't know. I don't want to call you young. Or I don't want to call you old, Hutch. So
You can call me whatever you want, man. As long as you keep me 16, I don't want to be a different age.
I bet you Sweet 16 was better. I bet you Sweet
I didn't
16.
have a sweet 16. That wasn't really a thing for me. But
Let me tell you, I didn't have a Sweet 16 either. In fact, my junior year of high school, we had a graduating class of one.
Wow.
There was no such thing as a high school prom for me.
Yeah. I wasn't to my prom. I didn't go to my prom this year, but maybe next year. We'll see.
So tell us about yourself.
So, I'm Hutchinson Brown. I'm 16 years old. I'm just trying to make my way in the fantasy football space. I've been creating content kind of all over the place. For now, while Twitter is still alive, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at HutchinsonB_FF. It's my username here on the stream. And I do content all over the place. I have a job with DLF, Dynasty League Football. I create content with them. I create content with Football Guys and all of them over there. Both fantastic companies to work with. Both create fantastic content. I love working with those two companies. And I'm also I'm working on a big project with Luke Sawhook. If you don't know Luke Sawhook, you should go follow him. His handle is Luke Sawhook on Twitter. Me and him are working on something big together in the podcast game. So please make sure you stay tuned to that on both of our Twitter accounts. We'll be making announcements about it hopefully pretty soon. Me and Luke are still working out some final details, but we have a big project coming soon. And I also have a Patreon. If you check out my, the link is in my Twitter bio. If you check that out, there's a couple tiers there. So any of support would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, I'm really just a teenager trying to make his way in the fantasy football space. I've been doing this for about like 2.5 years now. Like I'm not just brand new to this. I've been doing this for a while now. I've got a lot of experience in the industry. I'm really looking for this full-time job in the industry somewhere. That's really what my goal is at the end of this.
Let me tell you, when I was your age, I was just playing my first fantasy football league and wondering what the heck am I doing.
Yeah, man.
I remember my first fantasy football team like it was yesterday. I think it was
So do I, man.
08 or 09. Like it was the year. My team was Peyton Manning.
Oh,
The
no.
year
Yeah,
Chris
man.
Johnson rushed for 2,000 yards.
Oh, yeah.
Reggie Wayne.
Oh, yeah, you got Reggie Wayne there. Yeah, he was like early 2000s.
Sidney Rice, Percy Harvin,
yeah.
Dallas Clark.
I'm trying to remember all these players. I was like 3 years old when these players were around in their prime.
Yeah, you might have been.
I wasn't really into football. I'm trying to remember. I know these names. But man, yeah. My first fantasy league I was in. My first fantasy league I played in was 2019, and I got Christian McCaffrey on my team during his season, and that ended up with me winning a championship on his back. But that was my first fantasy football pick was Christian McCaffrey, which is kind of like awesome. But yeah, that's how new I am to the game a little bit. I've only played fantasy football for like 5-6 years now.
Yeah. So, what's changed about fantasy football the last 4 or 5 years since you've really gotten in the game?
Oh man, the biggest thing that has been changed. It's been a constant change over the last 4 or 5 years, but the running back position specifically has been just so devalued. Like the NFL consistently over the past 5-10 years has just gotten less and less attentive to their running backs, and it's for good reason. Like you see teams going to the Super Bowl not paying the running backs tons of money. The running back position is a very replaceable position in the NFL, and as a result, you're not seeing guys being superstars for fantasy as much anymore. Like This is a passing league now. And as a result, our fantasy running backs are suffering as a result. Like there aren't many great fantasy running backs anymore. Like there were more like in the early 2000s and like in the 90s. Like it just isn't like that anymore. Running back is a much less valued position. And that's really the thing that's made it crazy is because now you see in ADP, running backs are being pushed so far down. Receivers, quarterbacks are being pushed so far up. And it's just wild to adjust to it. And that's really been the big thing over the last 4 or 5 years is the adjusting to less and less value towards the running back position from the NFL. That's been the biggest thing to adjust to.
Yeah, unless you're drafting Christian McCaffrey or Austin Eckler, the running back ADP is whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yeah, it's wild. There's just like running backs. Like, you can go back to like 2-3 years ago in the ADP and in a non-super flex league, in a redraft league, like you find like 6 to 8 running backs going in the first round in a 12-team league. This year, there's like 2 or 3.
And one of them's a rookie.
Yeah, one of them is a rookie, Bijan, who we all love for this season. But I mean, like, it's just insane. Wide receivers are being pushed up so heavily, and it really, really changed the strategy. For me personally, like I have found that I like targeting running backs, specifically in the second round, because these guys that are going later aren't bad. Like you have Nick Chubb, Ramondre Stevenson, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, all guys that are getting potentially 3 down rolls in the NFL going in the second round of your fantasy drafts.
JT.
And what's that?
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor's going in that range. I mean, there's a lot of upside with Tony Pollard this year. He's going in that range. Like,
Chubb.
what's that?
Chubb.
Yep. Yeah, Chubb. Chubb's going there. You got who else is going there? I mean, you have Najee Harris going in that range as well. Like, there's just so many players where it's just like these guys are built for 3 down rolls. They've been successful for fantasy and they're going later in drafts. And the thing is, for me, I like targeting running backs early now even better, because the running back position is starting to become like the tight end position in fantasy football, where it's like there's only a few good guys, and having one of those big time running backs is actually a huge advantage in fantasy football. You see over the last few years, people are struggling to fill in that RB2 spot because it's just injuries pile up, things go wrong, people get replaced, like things happen, and like it's just such a fluid position, and it's really, really hard to find those guys. So if you can find one of those stud running backs, you are set for fantasy football. You have an advantage over your league mates. So I like taking a receiver round 1. I don't mind it. I'm happy with it. But I am very happy taking 2 stud running backs in the first 2 rounds of my fantasy drafts. Like I'm finding a lot of value at the running back position because of how far they've been pushed down and how high receivers have been pushed up. So like as in fantasy football, to win, me, one of my main mottos is zig while everyone else zags. If you see a run on a certain position, don't take that position because you're taking the mediocre end of one position when you could have the best of a different position. I'm always going to rather take the best of a different position, have that advantage at one position. So, and right now that's the running back position. The running back position is being pushed so far down fantasy drafts. So if you can find a stud running back early in your drafts, or even 2, or even 3, one in the third, like Josh Jacobs is in the 3rd round. Like we saw what he did last year. He was a difference making fantasy option. If you can find those guys in the first couple of rounds of your drafts, you're set. So I know the trend right now is ignore running back 0 RB, but since that's the trend and it's going really hard in that direction, you might want to swig the other direction, start drafting yourself some running backs early in your drafts. I don't think you'll regret it if you can find the right guys.
It might also depend on what kind of league you're in, because last year in my game team league, I got the 102. So can you guess who the 101 was?
It was, it was back and forth between JT and Christian McCaffrey last year. I would guess JT is the 101. He was the most common.
Yeah, and and I took McCaffrey at 1 or 2, and then in that same draft, I went Pittman in the 2nd round, 211, and then 302. And 302, there was only one quarterback I was going to take with that pick in a guillotine.
Was it Mahomes?
It was a guy who beat Mahomes last year, but not in the playoffs.
Oh shoot! Why can't I think of the name?
I'll give you a hint. His team's playing now in the division round.
Oh wait, you're talking about Herbert?
No, Allen.
Wait. Oh shoot! Yeah. No. Duh, Allen. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, obviously. No. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It was at the third round. Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, but yeah, fantasy football has really changed the past few years with running backs. It's insane. But yeah, man, that's it's crazy.
I didn't feel like it was bad because everybody was drafting Michael Pittman. I didn't think Matt Ryan would look like he's 95 years old last year.
Yeah, no, he was terrible. I was honestly out on Michael Pittman that year. I was really not super hyped with Michael Pittman. I really didn't believe in Matt Ryan, and I didn't think he'd be that bad either. But I was right to not believe in him because man, he was a disaster. It was
Well,
truly a disaster.
the whole Colt team was a disaster last
Oh
year.
yeah, it was disgusting. It was so gross last year. Jonathan Taylor was way off. He's injured. Michael Pittman didn't play well. The quarterback situation was a disaster. But Anthony Richardson coming in could be interesting. I mean, I don't think he's going to be. I don't honestly don't think he's going to be a great passer. I mean, we saw him in college put up 50% completion percentages. Like this is like he was genuinely an awful passer in college. Even at the combine, he made some nice deep throws, but there were a couple routes, like a simple out route that he could barely complete it. Like it was awful watching him at the combine. He didn't have as good of a combine as people think. I know athletically he tested really well, but watching him pass was pretty brutal. Like Anthony Richardson needs a lot of development. I don't think he's going to lead this Colts offense to the success that we may think in year one. I think he could still have success for fantasy anyway because he's an amazing running quarterback. And we know what they can do for fantasy football. They are an advantage in fantasy football if you can find one of those guys. But yeah, it's Anthony Richardson I don't think he's going to take that next step for this Colts offense though, because he really isn't going to make a difference as a passer.
Does he have does he have potential Jalen Hurts ability? I mean, I think Jalen Hurts was a little stronger running, but I mean, watching Rich at Florida, I mean, he can know the arm strength athleticism. I think the question, and it seems like he'll learn. I think the question is, do the Colts have enough around him? Because guess what the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts? They got him Devontae Smith. They got him AJ Brown. Great offensive line with an underrated tight end, Dallas Scott.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Richardson right now, I mean, you could argue he's surrounded by pretty solid weapons. I mean, they do have Michael Pittman in this offense, a number one wide receiver in the NFL. You do have Jonathan Taylor, a stud running back. You have an offensive line that definitely took a step back last year, but I'm thinking we're looking at a bounce back year for this offensive line. There's too much talent on that offensive line to just throw them away and think they're not going to be a good offensive line. I think that's going to be a very solid bounce back for them this year. And then you have some guys like you have Alec Pierce, who flashed a little bit as a rookie this past year. You have Jelani Woods, a tight end that could be taking a step two in year two. He did have some flashes this past year. And then you have Josh Downs, a rookie they drafted in the third round of the 2022 NFL draft this year. I know he's a rookie wide receiver, and I know he's been spoiled lately by some amazing rookie wide receivers, but it tends that rookie wide receivers aren't superstars from the very beginning, especially a third rounder. So Josh Downs might help this offense a little bit, but I would say he's not surrounded by what Jalen Hurts is surrounded by now, but he's definitely surrounded by a core to succeed. I don't think you need to make major additions to this offense unless you're going to let Michael Pittman go, because this is his contract year. They could absolutely let him go after this year if they want to.
And the whole AFC South is wacky with quarterbacks because, yeah, we know what Trevor Lawrence is with my Jags, but I mean, CJ Stroud, I don't feel like CJ Stroud's Bryce Young. I feel like CJ Stroud's more Dak Prescott, Jared Goff-ish than franchise changer. But maybe if you have the Texans, dependable is all you need with some of the pieces there.
Are you talking to somebody? Okay, never mind. Podcasting.
Yeah, Hutch.
What's that?
Maybe CJ. I don't know about you, but to me, CJ Stroud feels more like Dak Prescott or Jared Goff potential than a top level of quarterback. Plus, Ohio State quarterbacks never succeed in the NFL.
Yeah, with CJ Stroud, I think looking at the college is not a good idea. You want to evaluate the player, not the helmet. Personally, like when I look at college quarterbacks, or college players in general, I don't really like to look at the school. It's not necessarily the smartest thing to do. Obviously, I mean, you can look at it and think of it as like a major minor grain of salt, but like it's nothing to be super concerned about. Like we see players from different colleges succeed at every level, so I'm not too worried about that. But C.J. Stroud as a prospect, he's very intriguing. I mean, this dude can drop dimes all over the field. I think he does have the real potential. I think he really does. He's great running ability as well. He didn't showcase it much in college in flashes he did, but he was mostly in high school. If you look at his high school stats, you look at his high school film, this dude can run. This dude can absolutely make a difference as a runner. If he unlocks that with the Texans, this offensive line isn't fantastic. It isn't like world changing. So he might be at some points where he's under pressure. He might have to run. If he can unlock that rushing ability this year and really develop as a passer, I know the weapons aren't the best, but you got Dalton Schultz security blanket, and there are 3 receivers here with Nico Collins, John Mechie, Tank Dell. They all have some potential in this offense. So I think C.J. Stroud actually does have the potential. This dude in college dropped dimes all over the field. His accuracy is something that I was blown away by his accuracy. It is absolutely insane. The balls that this man can place, the balls that this man could throw. It's just wild to me to watch. So I think C.J. Stroud actually does have the game-changing potential. And I disagree a little bit there. I think he does have the game-changing potential. He showed a lot in college. And
I mean, that Georgia tape was
the Georgia tape specifically was something different. Like that was one of the better quarterback performances I've ever seen in college.
But doesn't hurt that he played with potentially 5 first-round wide receivers. You look at the 2 drafted in 2022, Jason drafted last year, and then Marvin Harrison and and then
Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave as well.
And then the other guy potentially drafted in the first round next year.
Marvin Harrison, yeah. You could argue that with Joe Burrow too. He played with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and they are arguably the 2 best receivers in the NFL now. And Joe Burrow is fantastic. Like Joe Burrow is still great, but he played with them too. And I'm not saying C.J. Stroud's a Joe Burrow level prospect, but C.J. Stroud, I don't think it matters what receivers necessarily play with. If you can ball, you can ball. So I think he might have to adjust to playing with some less adequate wide receivers this year, but I'm not too concerned about that. We saw what Joe Burrow was able to do with Joseph Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and what he's able to do in the NFL. I'm very, very not worried about that at all.
Okay, you mentioned all these rookie quarterbacks. How about the number 1 pick, Bryce Young? I mean, I love being Bryce Young. I mean, truly, he's a little smaller than I want him to be, but I feel like Bryce Young is the safest quarterback prospect. I mean, who knows if Caleb Williams would have gone one-on-one, or Drake May, if either one had been eligible, but I think Bryce Young, who knows how long he'll last, but be honest with you, I think Bryce Young could lead the Panthers to the playoffs in that piddly poop division.
Yeah, absolutely. This division is pretty. It might be the worst division in the NFL next year. Like it really might. Like the NFC South is a pretty poor division, especially when you look at the quarterback position playing for them. I mean, the best quarterback in that division right now, unless Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud really have a breakout. Oh, no, sorry, not C.J. Stroud. He's not in that division. Bryce Young. If you see Bryce Young having a breakout, maybe he could beat out Derek Carr. But for now, Derek Carr is probably the best quarterback in that division, which is not something that division has anything to be proud of there. But I think Bryce Young really does have the potential to change this franchise. I mean, over 8,356 yards in college, 8.8 yards per attempt, 65.8% completion. I agree with what you said. He's the safest quarterback in this class. I mean, when you look at him throw the ball, he's very poised in the pocket, which is something that you really like to see out of a college quarterback, that poise. It's something that reminds me, I know these 2 players are not the same in my mind at all, but watching his poise in the pocket is very similar to something I love seeing in Trevor Lawrence. His poise in the pocket at such a young age at quarterback is something that's really impressive to see. Bryce Young knows where and when pressure is coming and how to avoid it. He's good at making space in the pocket. He's good at moving around in the pocket, making space with his legs, and if he needs to, runs outside the pocket and makes plays. Like Bryce Young is an excellent pocket passer. He knows what's going on in the pocket whenever he needs to. And that's something that's really going to develop well in the NFL, and it's going to do well in the NFL, especially with that Panthers offensive line not playing the best. I know they got some young players that could take a step forward this year, but if it was what it was last year, he's going to be taking some hits. He's going to be getting some pressure, and that poise is going to be something that really helps him in his rookie year, especially. hopefully they maybe they add DeAndre Hopkins this offseason. I've seen those rumors and it would make sense for them to do. But maybe if they don't, if they add receivers next offseason, either in the draft or through free agency or through trade, they could really, really help out Bryce Young step forward and develop through the next couple of years of his career. But yeah, I love Bryce Young. I think he is a very safe, very good prospect. I love Bryce Young, and I think he deserves me a more overall pick. I would prefer him over C.J. Stroud personally, even though I love C.J. Stroud, and I'd prefer him over Anthony Richardson or Will Levis.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you and I could win the NFC South under center right now because they're called Young, Redder, and then whatever shell of Baker Mayfield's left.
Yeah, it's Baker Mayfield or probably mid-season Kyle Trask. I don't think Mayfield lasts the season.
Maybe the buck stops at Caleb Williams.
Mayfield isn't going to last this season.
No,
he won't last the full season. It'll be
we'll
Kyle Trask.
probably end up playing on Thursday Night Football with half the league next year, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, who are some of the players you're looking to talking in dynasty leagues or dynasty drafts?
Dynasty specifically, I mean, some players I really, really like to target right now. Firstly, I would, this player's dynasty value, I think, could take a massive increase after this year. There's an argument thrown around that he is a little bit older now, but it's not really true. He's 24 years old. I'm going to throw out the name of Cam Akers real quick. Cam Akers is somebody that I'm really excited for this year specifically. And I think for the next couple of years, he could be a really good game-changing fantasy running back. I know the Achilles tear is something that we really don't like to see, and something that's really not any running backs ever have really come back from. Like, we never have really seen it. The most recent example you can think of is Deonta Foreman, who had a really nice stretch with Carolina for a while. But that was really it. And then you can see with James Robinson, his Achilles tear, he's now out of the league after a couple of years after his Achilles tear. Like, he's gone. Like, he just got cut from the Patriots. He cleared waivers. Like, nobody's signing him at all. But I think when you look at Cam Akers' situation, I think everything is set up for him to beat it. Specifically this year in this offense, he is set up for the bell cow workload. The Rams recently brought in Sony Michel, and a lot of people have been talking about how that threatens Cam Akers, and I think that makes no sense. I think it's more of a threat because they're not going to make Sony Michel their lead back. It's more of a threat to Kyron Williams and more of a threat to Zach Evans, who they recently drafted in the 6th round of the 2022 NFL draft. If those two, or one of them at least, was actually impressing, they would have not brought in Sony Michel. That would have not been a consideration for them. But they brought him in because maybe they're worried about Zach Evans or Kyron Williams, which brings even more confidence to Cam Akers that he's going to be the clear number one back in this offense. And we saw him last year as the number one back in this offense. Do you want to know what he was on pace for in his last 6 games played? His pace is last 6 games played. Hold on, I have the numbers. I just got to pull them up right here. I wrote them down. So his pace in the last 6 games of the season, where he had the lead role in this offense, and he was getting the snaps, he was getting the touches. He was on pace for 1,448 rushing yards, 17 rushing touchdowns, which is a number that I don't think he'll match this year. I think he'll probably be more around like 8 to 10. I think 17 was a lot. He did have a 3-touchdown game, which is kind of crazy. At almost 5 a carry. He was almost averaging 5 yards a carry in that stretch. And he was on pace for 31 catches for 277 yards. That's not anything mind-blowing. But this year, I think there's going to be opportunities for more receptions. In the times that Cam Akers has gotten the full-time role, we've seen him been able to catch the football. And looking back at his games in those last 6 games, the numbers just didn't look good. It was the film as well. He looked really good on film. He looked physical. His cuts were really nice, especially on that foot, on that Achilles injury. He looked really, really good, especially catching the football. He looked smooth. And with Matthew Stafford, we know he's dealing with that elbow injury. You know it's something that's lingered with him for the last couple of years, and reports in camp are showing that he's still dealing with that injury. Right now, it's still lingering. He's another year older. Expect him to be a little bit busted up. Expect him to be dumping off the football a lot more often. That's going to be Cam Akers' game. So I'm expecting Cam Akers to have a huge breakout season. And in Dynasty, as a result, he's going to be much higher in the rankings after this year. So he's only 24 years old.
Plus contract year for him.
Contract year. Essentially, yes, exactly. Contract year. If he really, really proves it, maybe the Rams give him a 2-year deal. Extend him a little bit. Give him that contract. I don't know if they will, though, because they are in a bit of a rebuild, so it might not be smart to sign a running back to a bigger contract. He might move on to another team, which at that point it could be worrisome for him. But I think for this year specifically, he's going to be a really, really good fantasy running back, and I think his dynasty value is going to take a big jump At that point, you could sell him if you want. You could hold on to him. You could do whatever you want with him. But I think this year his dynasty value is going to take a big jump, and as a result, you should be drafting him. I want to invest in assets that are going to be jumping up over the next year or so. I want to invest in those assets that are getting more and more valuable. So K-Maker is one of those guys.
And then who's the guy you're looking to maybe avoid or consider moving in a deal?
Man, so a guy that I'm looking to move on from right now in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Man, that's a really tough one. There's a lot of names you could bring up. There really are. There's so many different names that you could bring up with players to sell. I personally think that DK Metcalf is a sell in Dynasty. I think you got to sell him off the name right now.
That's a hot
yeah.
take.
Oh, yeah. If I put that out there on Twitter, there's some people that would not like that. But I think DK Metcalf for the past years, he's been a great wide receiver. He really has. But I don't think he's been in the tier of elite where it's like a first-round pick does not affect him. He's not a Justin Jefferson where a first-round pick Jordan Addison will not impact him because Jordan Addison's not going to impact Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson will always get his. I think a first-round pick for DK Metcalf is a actual problem. Jackson Smith, I'm going to put out this might be another hot take. I think it's realistic that Jackson Smith-Njigba is the number one receiver by the end of the season. Over DK Metcalf, over Tyler Lockett, he's the number one receiver. He's the most valuable fantasy option by the end of the year.
Especially in PPR formats.
Even in a PPR format, I think that's how it's going to be. I mean, I have Jackson Smith-Njigba ranked over DK in Dynasty by 4 wide receiver slots.
Is it because Jackson Smith-Njigba was going to be in the slot when DK Metcalf's going to get the number one coverage, which means he'll see the other team's top corner. So if he ended up playing the Jets, he'll get Sauce Gardner. Or if he ended up playing Miami, he'll get one of Miami's corners. So he'll get.
No, I'm not worried about that. DK Metcalf can battle a number one corner and he'll be fine. It's the fact that Jackson Smith-Njigba, I think, actually might be a more talented wide receiver. I think he might be a more talented wide receiver. I mean, this dude put up
especially route run. I mean, look back at JSN's 2021 year. I mean, don't even look at 2022 because he didn't play basically last year. But JSN was really good in 21 and
1,600 plus yards. That's in an offense with Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. Like he was in that offense.
They all said JSN was the best receiver.
Yeah, he was the best receiver in that room. Look at Garrett Wilson now. Look at Chris Olave now, where they are in the NFL. And look where Marvin Harrison's going to be. He might be the number 2 overall pick in the draft next year. That is very realistic for him if he has another good season. Like JSN is a fantastic wide receiver. And I know DK Metcalf is the physical freak. I'm not saying JSN is more physically talented than DK Metcalf, but when it comes to route running, when it comes to getting open, when it comes to just being an overall all-around wide receiver, I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is the better player. And I think at the end of the season, the stats and the numbers will show that. DK Metcalf for me is somebody that I would sell off the name. He has a big brand in the NFL. His brand is really, really high. People love DK Metcalf because he is one of the physical freaks of the NFL. I would sell him for anything, for a lot right now. I would sell him if I were you, because I think you can get a lot for him still, even after our first round pick was just added to this team. There's still plenty to get for DK Metcalf in Dynasty. I would make that move if I were you.
The one guy I have not moved and I will not move in Dynasty. And I've got him in my Dynasty League is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is going to get a stupid amount of targets from the Lions this year. No Jameson Williams, no TJ Hawk.
Well, for 6 games. Jameson Williams only gone for 6 games. He'll be back. But yeah, I agree with you.
Williams couldn't catch a cold in Alaska and couldn't fall off, couldn't hit water if he fell off a boat last year.
I mean, yeah, I'm more on St. Brown. You're right. I mean, he's going to get plenty of targets, but I think Jameson Williams could still make an impact on this offense. They spent a first-round pick on him, and they traded up for him, too. Jameson Williams could definitely make an impact on this offense. But at the end of the day, I do agree with you. Amon-Ra St. Brown, somebody that you shouldn't be trading away in Dynasty necessarily.
We know what the Detroit Lions did this past draft, drafting a running back at 12 and a linebacker at 18, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown, fantastic wide receiver. I agree. You should not be trading him away in Dynasty. But yeah, he's very, very valuable. Is there anybody else in Dynasty that you would be targeting? Do you have anybody else that you could come off with the top of your head?
Yeah, I'm trying to get all these running backs. I'm trying to get all these running backs and at least one stud wide receiver. Like my dynasty, I've got Amon-Ra and T. Higgins as my wide receivers in dynasty, but I want one of the big ones. I've got the 103, 104, 108, and 110, but I'm trying to get one of these top 3 or 4 guys.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking in your rookie draft, the 103, 104.
Yes. And basically, I'm knowing that I already contacted the guy one-on-one. He's not trained to beat John Robinson. The guy, I haven't been able to contact the 102 because generally the 102 is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is going on 102.
So I know 103 would be JSN, and then I'm like, oh crap, I'm not going to be able to get a running back because I've already got Trevor as my dynasty quarterback.
Yeah, no, you're not gonna be able to get a running back that's worth picking at 103 or 104 because if Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson are gone by 103, you're not gonna be able to get that running back you want. I would suggest personally, like, I have him ranked at 10 in my rookie rankings, even in a super flex. I have him ranked at 10. I would look for Kendrick Miller personally. I think Kendrick Miller in the Saints offense is going to have a fantastic rookie season and have a fantastic career. I mean, he's set up really, really well in the Saints offense because we see Alvin Kamara. He is slowly but surely running out of gas. He's just running out of it. He's potentially has a suspension coming his way this year. And outside of that, there's not much competition. I know they add Jamal Williams, but he got lucky in the end zone last year. He wasn't really a huge factor for this team besides scoring tons of touchdowns. Like, Kendrick Miller's going to easily be able to push him out of the way and become the lead back for this team by season's end. So I'm very, very confident in him. I'd look to take him at 10. I'm very happy with him as a dynasty running back personally. I have him ranked. Where I have him ranked? I think I'm ranked at RB 15, which is pretty high compared to most consensus rankings.
Yeah, 103 would be in rookie drafts would be JSN, right?
Yeah, you do not hesitate. I mean, I would take Jahmyr Gibbs over JSN if Jahmyr Gibbs is there. Like, if the 102 does take JSN, which is a possibility, I take
I'm gonna take Jahmyr Gibbs, and then at 104 I'm gonna take Jordan Addison.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. If I would either take JSN or Jahmyr Gibbs at 3, whoever's available, and then Jordan Addison at 4. He's definitely the next.
Would you consider trading the picks?
No, I'd be happy with that haul at 103 and 104. I think Jordan Addison in this offense is very much. I think he has a great opportunity to make an impact as a rookie. I mean, Adam Thielen leaves a lot of targets open, and like, this offense is just so set up to have a huge season when you look at passing numbers. Like, Kirk Cousins is on a contract year. We know like what he likes to do on contract years and 1-year deals. It's what's made him so much money in the NFL. He performs on these 1-year deals, and he continuously performs on them, and he continuously makes money, and teams continue to doubt him, give him that 1-year deal, and he continues to just crush it for fantasy football and for the real life NFL too. When you look at his numbers. And this offense is set to take more passing attempts this year than they did last year because Dalvin Cook left. They didn't really replace him. And Alexander Madison's not as trustworthy a running back as Dalvin Cook. They're not going to be able to pass. I mean, they're not going to be able to run as much as they want to. That sets up Jordan Addison as the clear number 2 receiver next to Justin Jefferson, who's going to be taking a lot of double coverage, taking a lot of the attention. Jordan Addison's going to be left open. He's going to be left with a lot of opportunity. So I'm very happy taking Jordan Addison at 4 to 1 quarterback league.
Yeah. So from Dynasty to Best Ball now, let me tell you, I've been doing a lot of Best Ball drafts. I already did one live stream of a Best Ball draft. Lucky I got Kelsey and Mahomes, but be honest with you, Best Ball is tricky because I feel like last year the Best Ball running backs from like round 8 through 12 or 13 really won people a lot of leagues or won people a lot of money when you're looking at McKinnon, Jamal Williams, or some of these guys. I don't know the right strategy because what I like to do is go 5 wide receivers, quarterback, tight end early, and then get my running backs in like 8 through 12 because I feel like that's the wide receiver no zone.
So for me, when I actually like Like I've played in a couple best ball leagues, but I don't get to play because specifically everyone plays best ball in underdog, and I can't play an underdog. I'm actually not old enough yet. I'm not allowed to download the app or play an underdog, so I'm missing out on underdog.
Wait till you're 18. Wait till you're 18, and then you're 20. Wait till you're 18, Hutch.
Yeah, I gotta wait till I'm 18 to play an underdog. But I'm very experienced in the best ball world. I'm able to play a few leagues on Sleeper and been able to talk about it a lot and learn about it, do research on best ball and how it works. And some things I've learned from best ball, I think this year specifically. I mean, I'm looking personally when I'm looking at a best ball draft. I actually disagree with drafting a tight end early. I think drafting a handful of tight ends late actually is the better option because when you look at tight ends late, when you look at the weekly finishes of the tight end position, you see random guys finishing at the top every week because they got in the end zone. You see random guys finishing with like 14 points because they got in the end zone. They got in the end zone twice, or they had 5 catches.
Who's that Houston Texan tight end who scored all those touchdowns? Week 1 and week 2 last year? I can't think of his name.
I don't remember who it was. Was that Jordan Akins? It might have been Akins.
It wasn't Akins. I think it was traded from Buffalo to Houston.
It was OJ Howard.
Yeah, OJ Howard ended up scoring like 1 million points week 1.
Yeah, he ended up having some okay performances, I think, that last year. But it's funny, OJ Howard's career, man, picked as a first-round pick and then kind of just disappeared, sadly. But last year he finished with 2 receptions and 2 touchdowns in week 1 against Indianapolis. Like, I think he was Houston Texan then. But yeah, he really. But anyways, I would like to draft tight ends late because if you can get 2 or 3 guys late, right, you're going to have one every week that scores a touchdown, or most weeks that score a touchdown. You're going to have one of those guys that just gets like 10, 12 points and gets in the end zone for you because you don't have to set the lineup yourself. When you play the tight end position streaming in a redraft league, you have to guess every week. With best ball, you don't have to. So I think drafting like 2, 3 tight ends late, hoping they get in the end, one of them gets in the end zone every week, I think that's the better strategy because you just don't invest much in the tight end position at all, and you can focus elsewhere in your draft for the early rounds. So I actually don't want to draft a tight end early. I do I honestly think drafting wide receivers early is the best because, man, they present the most upside in fantasy football. Like when you look at that, like when you look at how big of because 60-yard receptions, 30-yard receptions, those come more often than like 30-yard rushes. Like they just come more often. The PPR asset, like
100-yard
what?
100-yard bonus.
Yeah, like wide receivers just have more upside when it comes to fantasy football weekly. So, and that's what you want in best ball. You want high weekly upside. So I'm actually drafting heavy wide receivers, and I'm willing to do like a hero RB type of approach where it's like 1 RB early and then take a few guys later, like in the rounds like 8 through 12 range. Like you were saying, there's actually a lot of interesting guys back there in that range of the draft that have a lot of upside. So I do think that drafting like 1 running back early, getting like a hero RB type of strategy, heavy wide receiver, an early quarterback's fine, a late quarterback is fine. I don't really matter there, but really the couple things I want to focus on is heavy wide receiver and best ball because they give you the most weekly upside. And then at tight end, I prefer going late tight end. I think it's the much better strategy because you're going to get some guys that present weekly value every week and you don't have to spend the cost on it.
I think it also depends on what stack you pick because pick a random stack. Just pick a random top stack in fantasy football.
Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown.
Well, you could take that. Well, Dallas got us in 6, 7 round guys. You can go Brown, Hurts, Goddard.
You could, yeah. Yeah, stacking is something in best ball that's really, really interesting because stacking gives you more upside because if those 2 players really hit together, like AJ Brown against Pittsburgh when he had like 4 touchdowns, like that week, if you had the Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown stack, like you won your league that week. Like you don't debate that. You won your league that week. That was insane.
By the way, let me tell you this. I've seen I've done 49 drafts on DK1 on Underdog, and literally I've seen people not stack. And I'm like, what are they doing? Like I see people take Stephon Diggs, and then they take a running back who the Bills don't play in week 17. I'm like, what are you doing? If you take Josh Allen, if you take Steph Diggs at pick 7 or pick 8, guess what you should take in the second? Who you should take in the second round?
Josh Allen. Yeah, I mean it's fair to want those. It's fair to want those stacks, but you also don't want to reach for them as well because it is valuable to have those stacks, but it's also like you don't want to reach on it. If there's a really valuable running back or wide receiver at that range, that might be a more valuable piece for your team than Josh Allen, then you might want to take the more valuable running back or wide receiver. So I do get what you're saying. Stacking best ball is very valuable and it's really something good to do. But you also just don't want to blindly do that every time because you feel like you have to. Because
No,
you
well,
don't
like,
necessarily have to.
what's like if you take Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you're not going to take two in round 3, or you're not, or you take
No.
CeeDee Lamb on right. You're not going to take Dak round 3. You're going to take two around 7 or 8 probably.
Yeah, he's actually going later than that in most best ball
Like,
formats. He goes later than that.
or round
Yeah,
9.
he goes more like round 9, 10. Yeah. And same with Dak. He's going around like 8, 9. He's going right around 2 range. But yeah, you can get those guys late. I like personally, I think that one of my favorite stacks in best ball, like one of the favorite stacks I'm seeing. I love Tua and Hill or Tua and Waddle. I love that. And I also love CD and Dak. Those are 4 players that those are 5 players. Because you say Hill and Waddle. Those are all players I'm really high on this year for fantasy, specifically the wide receivers. The quarterbacks I'm also high on. I think I'm a little bit above consensus on both of them. This year, I do like their potentials and their offenses with their weapons, but specifically with the wide receivers, I love those stacks. They're cheap, they're affordable because the quarterback's going later, and you get to continue to draft your wide receivers heavy. So I'm very happy to take those quarterbacks a little bit later to get that stack if I don't have to spend up on a quarterback too.
Oh, let me tell you about one crazy draft I did a week or 2 ago. I think I got like the 106, 107. So I took Tyreek Hill, and
All
then
right.
second round, guess who I picked?
You got Waddle?
Yep.
Yep.
Third
All
round, I'll give you third round. I got Keenan Allen,
All right.
and then round 4, I'll give you a hint. Who do the Chargers play week 17?
The chart. Who do they play week 17
Yes.
this year?
Yes.
I don't know who they play this year. I don't
Denver.
remember. They play who?
Denver.
Denver. You took Jerry Jeudy in round 4.
Yes.
Okay.
And then round 5, I got Justin Herbert.
Yeah, that's nice. Justin Herbert round 5 is great. Yeah, Justin Herbert's down. A lot of people are down with
I'm
Justin
like,
Herbert this year.
Justin Herbert round 5. I'm like, what? And be honest, that Keenan Allen pick was an accident. I did not. I actually almost didn't want it, but I took and then wanted Jerry Jeudy because of LA Denver. Took Herbert round 5, and then I got Tua later.
Yeah, man.
And then
Nice.
another crazy draft I did. I think I got like 110, 111, 112. I got CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra. And then round 3, round 4, I got Devontae Smith and DK Metcalf. And I'm like, I can't believe they fell.
Yeah.
I'm like, even though I should be taking running backs, I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Sometimes when value falls, you just gotta take it. It's always something. And something I love to talk about in fantasy football is always be willing to adjust your strategy. Like if you see value falling, don't pass on it. Like adjust your strategy and take the value.
I got the 101 in one of my drafts, and then 102, 101, 102. I think I drafted Jefferson with that team, and then round 5, I think it was, I drafted Aaron Jones.
That's great. Round 5, Aaron Jones. I mean, he's been consistently a top 12 running back in like each of the past 4 seasons. And, Jordan Love is a starting quarterback this year, which brings up concerns. But Aaron Jones is a freaking talented running back. He's a fantastic player. Like, I'm not concerned about Aaron Jones. I think he's being very undervalued this year at his current ADP.
I mean, if you're going Minnesota, Green Bay, Minnesota, how about you draft Jefferson, Hawkinson, one of Jones or Watson, then get Kirk Cousins.
Good, yeah, you can do that.
Who's your favorite stack to draft in? Well, you mentioned a couple. Who are a couple of your favorite stacks?
Favorite stacks, like I think when you mean value wise,
I
think when
early and then value.
Okay, so one of my favorite stacks early. I mean, if you're taking both players early, I think that. I mean, you got to look at Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. Personally, for me, I think Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown are too special together because AJ Brown part is a massive red zone threat. When you look at stacks, touchdowns together are the most valuable piece because you get 6 points from both players for 1 touchdown. That is what you want to look for. So in AJ Brown, we know he's a red zone monster. We know he's a beast back there when it comes inside the 20. So Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown together, that is just going to be a deadly stack all season long. So if you want to pay up for a stack, that's one you want to pay up for, AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. And if you want to go for a cheaper one, man, on the spot, it is a little bit difficult to come up with a cheaper one. I'm looking at the list of quarterbacks I have in my dynasty rankings to see, like, just think of like some names I have in my head. Man, it is difficult. I think Justin Fields and DJ Moore is interesting. You're going to have to pay up for Justin Fields a little bit. He is going as like a top 6 quarterback in most fantasy football drafts. So you'll pay up for him a little bit. DJ Moore is also going like kind of in the Justin Fields range. He's going around like the 5th, 6th round, like Justin Fields is. So it's not like complete value, but if Justin Fields really takes that step as a passer this year, you know who's going to benefit from that? It's going to be DJ Moore. DJ Moore is really going to be benefited from that. We saw it with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. We saw it with Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. This year, we could really see it with Justin Fields and DJ Moore. And we know what DJ Moore could do with awful quarterback play. If Justin Fields really takes that step and becomes a good NFL passer, DJ Moore could be a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. So if you can get that kind of stack where Justin Fields is a top 6 fantasy quarterback, DJ Moore is like a fringe top 12 wide receiver in like the 5th, 6th round, it's looking pretty good for you. So I like that value there.
Throwing Cole Kmet?
What's that?
Throwing Cole Kmet?
Nah, I as much as I want to take a second option in this Bears offense, I don't think there's going to be enough passing volume going around. While Justin Fields could take a step as a passer, I don't see him supporting more than 2. I don't want to bet on it because Justin Fields last year, if he passes the way he did last year or anywhere near it, he's not going to be able to support 1 fantasy option, let alone 2. So I'm not willing to bet on any of the number 2 options for the Bears, whoever it could be, whether it's Cole Kmet, whether it's Robert Tonyan, whether it's Darnell Mooney, whether it's Chase Claypool, whoever it is, I just not willing to bet on it. I don't think there's going to be a clear alpha number 2 option in this offense. I think it's going to be DJ Moore and then a carousel of options, like kind of how it is in Buffalo right now with Stephon Diggs and then a mix of Gabe Davis and Dawson Knox and the other players in that Bills offense. Like, I don't want to bet on number 2 option for the Bears right now.
Let me tell you this much. I've gotten so much Deontay Johnson best ball in like 6th, 7th round. I don't know if I'm getting too much of him.
It's fair. I mean, Deontay Johnson's been like a top 10 guy in targets each of the past 3 seasons. Like, he's been getting a massive, massive target share.
You can't get into the freaking end zone.
Yeah, you just got to get in the end zone. And this year, I mean, we saw what happened with Miles Sanders last year, getting 0 touchdowns. Then look what he did this year. He's a fantastic fantasy option. And he won a lot of people leagues this year, actually, in the middle rounds. This year with Deontay Johnson, I mean, if Kenny Pickett really takes a step up, absolutely there is room for Deontay Johnson to be like a top 20 fantasy receiver because he's still the number 1 receiver in this offense, at least as long as George Pickens doesn't go wild. He is the number 1 receiver in this offense still in terms of targets, and he will continue to be, hopefully, as long as George Pickens doesn't go absolutely nuclear this year. And Kenny Pickett and him are going to have a good relationship, have a good chemistry together. Yeah, Deontay Johnson in the 7th round is nice. You're getting a guaranteed floor with target share.
Yeah, what I like to do, I like drafting one of the Seahawks and Steelers 6th or 7th round. So either be one of Lockett or Jameson or Deontay, George Pickens, because I think that Pittsburgh Seattle Week 17 could be a sneaky shootout.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, you don't want to go crazy for one game, making stacks for one game is not always the smartest thing to do because
we wouldn't have stacks for Cincinnati, Kansas City, right?
Well, I mean, of course you would want those, but I mean, you don't want to bet on one game. You don't want to put all your eggs in baskets in one game because there's 17 games to play.
I know.
You can't just put all your eggs in baskets in one game. That's not how you win fantasy football. You got to make sure you're winning consistently throughout the year. So don't overpay. I mean, if you want to think about that, that's fine. But just don't overpay for that because that just betting for one game just doesn't make sense.
Like if you get Steph Diggs and Josh Allen, if Ramondre Stevenson's there in the round 3, that'd be a guy you consider taking.
Yeah, in round 3, absolutely, that'd be fine. Because Ramondre Stevenson in round 3 is a good draft pick. He's like a top 10 running back in fantasy. Taking that in round 3, I'll take it. But I'm not really considering taking him in round 1 because I'd want to stack him with other players. Like I just don't want people to reach on players because of the stacking and because of the matchups looking good this week. You just don't want to stack players like that or overpay for stacking players like that because it's not worth it. But you brought up a really nice thing with Seattle receivers, and it brings up another idea in mind that I really like for a cheap stack. Look at Geno Smith, who finished as a top 6 fantasy quarterback last year and looking to step forward again this year, potentially with the more wide receivers and more weapons in this offense. I like him in JSN. I think that's a really good stack, or him in Lockett as well. I think that's a really good stack. DK, you have to pay up for, so I'm not really. And again, like I said in Dynasty, I'm not really interested in DK. I think he's going to have a step down here this year, to be quite honest. Yeah, I'm more interested in JSN and Lockett later than I am DK Metcalf in the earlier rounds. So if you can stack Geno Smith and JSN, that's great too. That's a great value one.
All right, Hutch. Thanks for hopping on. Hopefully things go well for you, and hopefully the weather is a little better than it is in Florida, because it is stinking hot and humid here.
Yeah, it was pretty gross today here as well, actually. But yeah, thank you.